The Legend of the Eight Immortals.
Chapter 29. The Spirit Bottle's Failure and the Gourd's Illusion. We pick up the story with Fei and Dian, whose souls had been snatched away by Tongxuanzi's spirit bottle. Now this Tongxuanzi was originally a short-lived creature of the autumn woods, a cicada, commonly known as a jiliao. Ordinarily, a cicada's life is fleeting, yet by some unknown fate, this particular one managed to live through 2 full years. It is in the nature of all living beings to never be satisfied. A cicada usually expects only a few months of life and harbors no grander hopes. But this one, born with a remarkably sturdy constitution, had broken the barrier of its short lifespan. Living past 2 years, it began to believe that a cicada's life could indeed be extended, that if it could survive 2 years, it could surely reach 20, 200, or even 20,000 years of eternal life. However, its knowledge was shallow and its status humble. It had no way to seek the Tao or ask for guidance. It thought to itself, "I have survived this year, but can I last another? Can I truly last 3 or 5 more years?" Realizing that it would still inevitably die in a year or 2, it felt no different from the cicadas that perish in their first season. Overcome with grief, it sat on a high branch day and night, weeping bitterly. A cicada is a creature of little value, sustaining itself only on wind and dew. Yet feeling the difficulty of attaining long life and the bitterness of its brief existence, it lost even the will to live those extra few years. It wailed so sorrowfully that it could no longer swallow even the wind or dew. After many days of such mourning, it hovered on the brink of death. As fate would have it, on the day it was to breathe its last, an immortal passed beneath the tree. Hearing the mournful cries, the immortal felt a stir of compassion and called the cicada down. The creature was so far gone it could not even open its mouth. Pitying it deeply, the immortal spat celestial water into the cicada's belly. Upon receiving this divine draught, the cicada felt its entire being filled with boundless spirit. It opened its eyes to find a smiling old immortal cradling it in his palm. Being of exceptional nature and having lived 10 times longer than a common cicada, it knew it had been saved. Overjoyed, it hopped about in the immortal's palm, bowing its tiny head against his palm again and again, a gesture of profound gratitude. The immortal nodded and smiled, saying, "It is rare for such a small creature to have such spirit. Since you seek to arise but have no teacher, I shall grant you the method of absorbing the essence of the sun and moon, and teach you the arts of transformation." But he added a warning: if you attain a human form and gain some progress, do not interfere in others' affairs, or fight for vanity. Do not let your humble origin be erased. If you do, your very skills will bring you disaster. Even if you live 500 years, you will still return to death, and perhaps suffer in the underworld. Your fate depends entirely on your own cultivation. I cannot protect you forever. The cicada bowed its head once more and received the immortal's great law. From then on, it practiced diligently for over 100 years, forgetting the short-lived nature of its kind, learning to transform into beasts and soar through the heavens. After another 150 years, the immortal returned, saying that in another 150 years it could take human form and truly study the great Tao. Indeed, 300 years later, it finally transitioned into a human body. By the time Ju Xian began her enlightenment ceremony, Tong Xuanzi had been led into the interception sect by the old Zhao, arriving at Huaihai village alongside a host of other demons. He was filled with a sense of triumph, believing that defeating the river snail immortal would be a great achievement in his cultivation. In his very first encounter, he used that spirit bottle, the one he had crafted from a tiny gourd using his own essence, barely the size of a middle finger, to capture the souls of Feifei and Diandian. According to him, this bottle was formidable enough to contain 10 million living souls. Because the gourd's walls were so thin, one could actually hear the voices trapped within. At that moment, Tong Xuanzi leaned in to listen. Inside the bottle, he heard Feifei and Diandian speaking. "I don't know what kind of strange thing has hidden us away. Everything else is fine, but I'm afraid of being suffocated." A moment later, the two began to reassure each other. "What is there to fear? Our Grandmaster has divine foresight. Seeing that we haven't returned, he will surely know we've fallen into foul hands. Once he arrives, will these wicked people even have a life left?" Hearing this, the two actually grew cheerful and began to sing mountain folk songs to pass the time. Tong Xuanzi repeated these words to the gathered demons, and the entire hall erupted into a roar of laughter. But right in the middle of their celebration, a sudden slap rang out, a sound so sharp and clear that everyone heard it. Tong Xuanzi's face turned bright red on one side, and the pain was so agonizing that he leapt up, frantically searching in every direction. The other demons scrambled in confusion, none of them knowing where the blow had come from. In the midst of the chaos, Tong Xuanzi suddenly discovered that his precious spirit bottle had vanished. When he rushed to check on the captured disciples, he found that Feifei and Diandian had also disappeared without a trace. Tong Xuanzi stood there dazed and speechless, while the old Zhao's eyes turned red with fury, his beard bristling in rage. Ming Zi let out a cold laugh. "It could be no one else. It must be that limping thief who came here invisibly, gifted our brother Tong Xuanzi a slap, and used our confusion to steal the bottle and the two captives." The old Zhao sighed. "It seems this limping ghost truly has some minor skills. We cannot afford to look down on him." One of his followers, Ho Kong the hermit, added, "You must beware, for that fellow is full of transformations and remains entirely hidden. We must be careful not to stay here and endure another slap for nothing." Hearing this, the demons were filled with a sudden shivering dread. But the old Zhao was indignant. "He can hide his form, but do you think I cannot transform? Tomorrow I shall go to that snail shell and turn his assembly into a scene of fallen flowers and flowing water to vent today's hatred." The other demons egged him on, crying that their great power must not be insulted by a limping Taoist, and that tomorrow's strike must not be delayed. Tong Xuanzi pondered in a low murmur for a moment before he spoke. "Other matters aside, the most hateful thing is that the rogue stole my magic artifact. What method can be used to get it back?" Mingzi and Ling Shuzi both laughed and said, "Fellow Taoist, set your mind at ease. We have heard that this bottle cannot be opened unless you personally recite the secret mantra. Therefore, even if the limping Taoist has it, he has no use for it. If he keeps it inside the snail shell, there will surely be a way to retrieve it in the future. Why the hurry now?" Tong Xuanzi stamped his feet and cried, "Fellow Taoists, you only know that the bottle cannot be opened without me, but you do not realize, since the limping demon could save the captured souls, he must have released their spirits from the bottle so they could return to their bodies and escape. If not, how could both captives vanish at the same time? Since the limping rogue can release the souls, he clearly has a way to open the bottle. Even if he cannot open it, he might have a way to shatter it. That would utterly ruin the treasure I have cultivated for so many years. Is that not both agonizing and a terrible pity?" While the other demons comforted each other, Ling Shu Zi and Kong Kong Zi grew indignant. That limping thief used petty theft in our first encounter. He clearly does not follow the orthodox Tao. If he is heartless, then we shall be unjust. They declared that they would each take their own immortal artifacts and head to the snail shell to see if the two disciples had truly returned to their souls. If they found an opening, they would strike to avenge Tong Xuan Zi and ruin the Enlightenment ceremony, proving that the powers of the interception sect were not to be trifled with by mere juniors. The old Zhao, overjoyed, poured 2 cups of wine to toast their success. The 2 demons drank them in one gulp, left the clam palace, and headed straight for the snail shell Tao field. Being masters of transformation themselves, Ling Shu Zi changed into a tiny mosquito, while Kong Kong Zi turned into a small ant. They crept stealthily into Zhu Xian's inner chambers. In the very last layer of the shell, they saw Iron Crutch Li sitting calmly upon a large meditation mat, though the 2 disciples were nowhere to be found. Ling Shu Zi whispered to Kong Kong Zi, "It seems those 2 haven't returned to their souls yet. Even though the beggar got the bottle back, he still can't save them." Kong Kong Zi laughed softly. "Then our brother Tong Xuan Zi can breathe a sigh of relief. This limping rogue has only harmed others without benefiting himself." Ling Shu Zi teased back, "At a time like this, you're still acting the scholar. How is that any different from the 2 captives singing folk songs in the bottle?" But as they bickered, Ling Shu Zi noticed something. "Look, a red light is radiating from the beggar's head. He is indeed a man of great spiritual merit. If we face him in a direct battle, none of us might be his match. Better to strike while he's unawares. I'll use my plum blossom needles to end him now and save us the trouble." Kong Kong Zi, who had joined his brothers in their stealthy mission, nodded in agreement. "I was thinking the same. Look, my treasure is ready." Before he could finish his sentence, a voice whispered right in their ears. "So, you demons have treasures too. Why not bring them out for us all to enjoy?" The 2 demons jolted in terror, their eyes darting everywhere, but they saw no one. Ling Shu Zi panicked. "This is bad. This fellow has real power. I'm afraid we can't outmatch him. Let's get out of here." But the voice laughed again. "Too kind, too kind. If you 2 want to return to the clam palace, shouldn't you leave your little treasures to keep the spirit bottle company?" The demons were horrified. They looked at Iron Crutch Li, who remained seated on his mat, motionless as a statue. Ling Shu Zi cried out, "Brother, we've made a mistake. That fellow must be invisible, following us with a body outside of a body technique. He could be on your back or under my belly. He can see us, but we can't see him. We're at total disadvantage." Kong Kong Zi, still an ant, argued, "I'm walking on the ground. He couldn't possibly be clinging to me. He must be on you, the mosquito." But Ling Shu Zi shot back, "I'm flying up and down, never still. How could he attach himself to me?" Just then the voice spoke again. "You foolish bugs. You've turned yourself so small, but don't you know there are things even smaller than you? Why wouldn't I be able to cling to you?" The demons trembled with fear. Ling Shu Zi shouted into the air, "What on earth have you turned into? Where are you?" The reply came calmly, "I've simply turned into 2 tiny gnats. One is resting on your wing, and the other is right under Kong Kong Zi's belly." Upon hearing this, the demons were scared out of their wits. They shed their disguises, resumed their human forms, and bolted for the exit. The 2 demons ran for what felt like hours, believing they had finally escaped the snail shell Tao field. They stopped to congratulate each other. One cried out, "Brother, we were lucky today. We barely escaped that damned shell." The other looked around in confusion. "This open field, I don't remember seeing such a vast place when we arrived." They decided that as long as there was a path, they must hurry back to the clam palace. But just as they spoke, a voice thundered in their ears. "You foolish things! You've been running in circles and haven't even crossed the threshold of my spirit gourd yet. You're giving me a headache." At this, the demons fell into a true panic. They fell to their knees, begging, "Great Immortal, you have toyed with us enough. Please stay your hand and let us go back." But the voice grew stern. "That is simple enough. Just leave your treasures here and I shall let you pass." When the demons continued to plead and hesitate, the voice erupted in fury. "I was kind enough to offer you a way out, yet you value these petty toys more than your lives? Fine, I shall strike you dead now, and we'll see if you still pity your lost artifacts." The demons collapsed in terror, kowtowing and wailing for mercy. Suddenly the world brightened before their eyes. A stone monument rose from the earth, bearing a row of large characters. "The tomb of Ling Shu Zi and Kong Kong Zi of the heterodox sect." The two were struck dumb with horror. Looking behind the monument, they saw a massive grave. The stone doors creaked open, and two yaksha stepped out, brandishing jagged weapons and beckoning them to enter. Paralyzed by fear, the demons clung to each other and wept. Ling Shu Zi, realizing there was no other way, was the first to cry out to the heavens. He vowed to surrender his soul-summoning banner, his 5-colored stones, and his Zhanxian sword forged of refined iron, only asking for his life. Kong Kong Zi likewise offered up his plum blossom needles and his lotus leaf handkerchief. With sorrowful faces they handed their treasures to the yaksha. The yaksha then forced them to explain the use of each item and insisted on a demonstration before letting them go. Once the tests were complete, a colossal crack of thunder shook the air. The demons huddled together, crying out, "The great Immortal promised us mercy. Why strike us with lightning?" But though the thunder was deafening, the lightning did not touch them. In an instant, the grave, the monument, and the yaksha vanished. In their place stood a boundary stone carved with small words. "From here, travel east by land to reach the Clam Palace, a journey of 105,000 miles. Or take the water route south for only 3,000 miles, but you must pass through the Gate of Demon Crushing, the Dam of Demon Rolling, the Shoals of Demon Shattering, and the Bridge of Demon Falling." The demons wailed in despair. "The Immortal granted us mercy, but these paths are impossible. The land route would take years, and the water route is filled with certain death. We are but weak creatures. We will never make it. We might as well die here at the Immortal's side." They knelt and kowtowed so hard that their faces were covered in blood. Finally the voice spoke again. "You piteous little demons, since you beg so earnestly, I shall not be too harsh. Open your eyes and see where you are." The two jumped with joy and opened their eyes. To their utter bewilderment, there was no open field and no stone monument. They were standing exactly where they had started. Their shock and gratitude were beyond words. What exactly had they experienced, and where had they gone? To find out, we must wait for the next chapter.